Today we're gonna take some time to talk about the concept of value and how we add value to our life. How does value fit into our life? And yeah, so that's kind of where we're gonna begin. So the thing is like this, that it's really important to understand when we're thinking about our value, the value of who we are as a human comes from a kind of build of who we are, right? Beyond like the basic description. It's what we do and where we come from. And a lot of times when somebody asks you like, where did you come from? Like where you come from beyond like a city or the family disposition. For a lot of people, when you ask them about themselves, what they'll do is there will be this like complaint, right? So you have two types of people. You have the one type of person that will take the approach and be like, where I came from, like this is the struggle I've been through, right? And it kind of becomes like a dumping ground where it's just like, oh my gosh, okay, you've been through so much. Anything I say can't top this. And then there's another approach, which we're going to talk about, and it adds and is where we add value. Is this is where I came from, and this is what I've been through, but this is how much I've overcome, right? So rather than coming from a place where it's a complaint, it ends up being like this story of hope and adversity. The beauty of that is that number one, we don't come from a place where we assume that we are the only ones that are going through things, but that every single person in their life, as long as they're living, is faced with a challenge. The second we go into a place where we believe that we've been through more than others, which I'm not countering that. I'm not disregarding anyone's pain. But when we go into that mindset where it is counterintuitive, is where we believe that, oh, somebody else, I'm special somehow. Now, if I'm special somehow, or I am unfortunate somehow, what ends up happening is we begin to isolate ourselves, right? We come from a place of real isolation, which then we kind of dip when it comes to like a depression or mood experience, where we will experience more negative thoughts and feelings than positive ones. So when we are in a position where we want to focus on performing at our best in our life, we have to make sure that we are not turning our pain into suffering. And that is a really essential component, because for a lot of us, what we'll do is we transition the pain into suffering. Whereas like when we're looking at something and thinking, how do I add value to this, right? When we go into a situation and say, how can I leave this place better than when I arrived? Then what happens is we're always looking to contribute. And rather than us wanting to take from that space, we're going to give and contribute. Now, the thing is if we think about the focal point of life in general, or one of the most important pieces of life, is wanting to feel satisfied. There's this satisfaction experience where everybody wants to feel satisfied and a sense of purpose. And they say neurologically and emotionally, there's caregivers, and then there are the people that are getting cared for. So the balance of, let's say, a parent and a child, or any teacher student, what ends up happening is, for a lot of us, the emotional connection, or the connection in itself of closeness, we feel that closeness. The person that is giving will feel closer than to the person that is taking or receiving. in in that dynamic, it would be like a parent feels a lot more emotionally connected to the child, emotionally invested in the child, than the child actually feels to the parent. Same with the student and with any kind of caregiving situation. So I always say, like, just a little hack here is whenever you are in a situation, especially with like, this is a lot for like teenage children, um, when they start developing their own independence, right? When they're younger, they depend a lot more on you. But as they develop, right, they can walk, they can talk, they can eat. Then they go into the stage where they start negotiating and fending for themselves. And when they're in that teenage space, they're they're in an adult body, but they're still maturing from an emotional perspective and still, evolving in their puberty. But the thing is that when they start kind of saying like, oh, I don't need you anymore, right? That's kind of where it gets a little bit tricky for some of us as parents. So the thing that I recommend is that when you're trying to rebuild that emotional connection with a child, or rebuild it with somebody in your life, right, that you feel like you're possibly losing that connection with, it's not, a lot of people will use the tactic of highlighting all the things that aren't working, saying this isn't working and that isn't working, and assuming that if I'm going to say this very clearly, they're going to understand and they're going to change, right? Or if we say to a child, I love you and I care about you, all these things are really, really important. But if we're trying to create the act of that emotional connection or that investment in the relationship, we have to find a way to allow this person, the person on the giving, on the receiving end, to begin to receive. And that's kind of where the trick is, to give. And that's kind of where the trick is. So when you're trying to build that connection, you're trying to find that giving factor. Where can you get that person to give just a little bit? Because as soon as they can contribute to the relationship, they will emotionally begin to invest in the relationship. And that's where a connection is built. So with teenagers, it's a really simple thing where you, or even with younger children, you give them small tasks. It's not about giving them a task that they can't handle. Don't give them these massive burdens, but just ask them something really, really small. Start with small things. And you can do this in any relationship. Start with small things, and don't judge the way it's done, right? So it's not, when you're asking somebody to do something for you, don't say to them, oh, it needs to be done this way or whatever. You can give them the criteria and you can nurture the giving, but it doesn't have to be like, I find a lot of parents especially say, it's not worth me giving them anything to do because I can do it better. And by the time I ask them, yeah, that's the point, that the relationship is so disconnected that it's not worth starting anywhere. But when we're trying to rebuild that connection, the way that we do that is by asking that person for little things. So that is just something really important to have in mind when we're trying to add value to something. The other thing is also is that there is, when we think about real, genuine contentment in life and happiness, a lot of that comes from the giving factor, not from taking. And for a lot of us in life, there's this misconception that, when I have everything I want and we go after all the things we're chasing, we're going to find happiness at the end of that rainbow, wherever it is, right? It's like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But the thing is that that's not how it works. If we're trying to find true contentment, it's about being in that space where obviously there's a give and a take, but we go into a space and we leave it a little bit better than when we entered. And we're able to practice that value. So adding value is a crucial part of this experience. So the thing is like this, that when we're trying to add value into our day, being present is really, really important. Listen intentionally, right? That is like so important. The next thing is we have to offer solutions. Now, this is a trick. It's a little tricky because sometimes we will be in a situation where people will ask us, we'll be listening, and it's not, and we're like, okay, I want to add value, so I want to fix this, right? And not always is it about solving the problem by offering a solution, but by actually offering a solution could just actually be listening. And it's paying attention to who wants to hear what you have to say in the sense of solution. I used to feel like, oh my gosh, I figured a lot of things out. Maybe people want to hear what I have to say. And then I realized I can only add value to the people that are actually interested in what I have to say. I can't offer value to somebody that isn't serious about that. So the next thing is leading with generosity. And this is really, really important. For a lot of us, when we're thinking about adding value, for some of us, we think, oh, I don't want to give away my secrets, right? Like, oh, I have this like really powerful knowledge, or like even in some things, it's just like, oh, I've been through something, right? And I don't want to share it. But sometimes it's not about what you share, it's about how you share it, right? So you can formulate a story, and this is kind of where value comes in, is you can formulate a story from a place of, and an approach of complaining or using details that are maybe private, or you can kind of come from a personal space and say, I've been through X, Y, and Z. This was my approach, right? And we never know the difference that we could make in that. Another thing is that sometimes we don't share because we're afraid what people are going to think or judge us, not realizing that sometimes by being completely transparent, we could be helping somebody. And so, and the extent of that is enormous. So that is something really important to remember. Another one is just refining your skill in general. Like with refining your skills, a really great way to do this is to ask yourself in life, where have I added value, right? So make a list to yourself of, like, you can make lists of personal things, and you can split it into like your personal life, your spiritual life, your emotional life, your relationship with others, however you want to do it, or just have a plain list and ask yourself, how did I add value? So either today, or you can do a few in the day in different areas in your day. But as soon as you go back to that list on days that we struggle most, and those days do show up, and we're like, what's the point of living? Or like we struggle with not being able to see the progress, right? Or the feedback. You can go to that list of values that you've added to life itself, and you'll see that incredible list, and it'll be full of rich reasons of why, and it is a great reminder. So that's like really, really important to kind of pay attention to. The other thing is also on an energetic perspective. When we come from a place of raising our vibration with value, right? When we think about value in itself, in energy, when we think of stepping up, going up into the higher, in our higher vibration, there's this warmth and clarity that's there, where we are more aware, right? So when we are looking to add value, now we're not coming from a critique perspective, but more of how do I nurture this place? We're more hyper focused on the details and the positive way, right? A positive way to contribute. What that does is it opens us up to a place where we have to pay attention to more details. We're more invested. And there's a sense of responsibility and purpose that comes with that as well. And when we're not sure, on those days that we're not sure why we're here or what we're doing or what matters in life, when we take things down to its simplest forms, it's to add value. That's really what it is. And it could be done in the most simple way. But like gratitude, when we focus on the on these little details, it naturally, you have to show up fully, right? So with feeling gratitude, you can only feel gratitude if you are in your body. There's no way of feeling gratitude in your head, right? That battle will happen and you won't win. But if you're in your body, you can feel that gratitude. You kind of have to call on all your senses and all your sensations, right? And that emotion also. So, sorry, 1 second. So that is really, really important to pay attention to. So like that, when it comes to value in itself, value, to be able to add value, we need to be completely present in our experience. And sometimes we don't want to. It's like not wanting to eat healthy or not wanting to work out. We don't want to show up. But we have to remember that what we're going to get out of it is going to feel incredible. So these are just like little bits and pieces on value. I can open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions on it, feel free to let me know. When it comes to this experience in general, this week in Nourish to Flourish, we are taking a really deep dive into the concept of value. And we sent out this really great packet this month of some great material and content to work with to be able to add value into your life and show up that way. So if any of you are interested, feel free to reach out and I can send you a link to the Nourish to Flourish program. It's only $10 a month because I believe that mental and emotional health shouldn't cost so much. So I try to contribute as much as I can from for the most affordable price I can. And that way also everybody that is supporting this experience is helping me with continuing to do the work that I do. So I'll open it up now if anyone has anything they want to share.